And he, as a German, knows this full well. So the Church Council got underway. They talk about an anti-preparatory phase, a preparatory phase before the preparatory phase. So it's a pre-preparatory phase, which is they set up a commission and set out a questionnaire to 205,998 bishops and abbots and whatever. They got responses from bishops and institutions, and then the sifting and all began. In general, the responses called for the continuance of the church as it was, condemnation of modern evils, and further definitions of doctrine. So it had that happened, not much dramatic would have happened. They set up then a preparatory commissions, 850 clergy on them. Two-thirds were not working in the Roman Curia. Two-thirds didn't work in Rome. So something's happening. But the burden of the work fell on the Romans. Central Coordinating Committee, but Pope John the 23rd set up a Secretariat for Christian Unity to liaise with Christian bodies all over the world. And they had 2 years to produce the documents, the drafts for the Council Fathers to debate. They produced 6 volumes, 5,000 pages. Biggest meeting in the history of the world. That's the attendance. And if you compare it with Vatican I had 750, Trent began with 29 and at its peak reached 200. This had 85 cardinals, 2,131 bishops. There were a lot of people, okay, on the council. And that's a picture of them behind, sitting in St. Peter's during the council. Pope John Paul II, John the 23rd, in his opening speech. And this is a very famous, I put up the most famous little quotes from him. We must disagree with those prophets of gloom who are always forecasting disaster as though the end of the world were at hand. Because everybody's saying, oh, it's terrible. Don't call a council. And he said, no, I'm not a prophet of gloom. And he said, it's not a council about doctrines. It's not going to be that. He said, we presume, this, down the bottom there, that it's well known and familiar for all. We don't need a council to define doctrines. The substance of the ancient doctrine of the faith, the positive faith, is one thing, the way in which it is presented is another. This is perhaps one of the most famous quotes of John the 23rd. The substance is one thing, what we believe, how we say it, how we understand it, how we communicate it is quite another. We're not going to change the substance, but we're going to go to work on the other, the latter. Okay? That's what the council was going to do, he said. And he said, we used to condemn people with great severity, but the spouse of Christ, which is the church, prefers to use the medicine of mercy. She's going to demonstrate the validity of her teaching rather than condemn. Convinced by showing the beauty and the truth of what the Lord does. So see him setting the tone? They loved him. When he, I won't digress. The great mystery, and also to seek unity, to seek that great mystery of unity which Jesus Christ invoked with fervent prayer, Father, that they may be one. So it's still got that goal of Christian unity. Who was there? So let's have a look. We're going to look at all of them. Well, no, we're going to look at some of them. So John himself, I'm not going to read his bio there, but you can see he was Time Man of the Year. Pope Paul VI took over in 1963, and therefore he presided over the second to the fourth sessions. John the 23rd only saw the first session. Who else was there? The young bishop from Wojtyła, from Krakow, who later became John Paul II. There he is meeting John Paul I up in the top right-hand corner. Also there was Cardinal Alfredo Ottaviani, whose motto was Semper Idem, always the same. And he was the prefect of the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, or the Holy Office as it's called, and president of the Theological Commission. So he was the watchdog, the doctrinal watchdog at the council. Archbishop Felici was the secretary of the Central Commission, therefore the General Secretary of the Council. He became a cardinal in 1967. Cardinal Bayer, a Jesuit, German Jesuit, had been the rector of the Pontifical Biblical Institute. Pius XII's confessor. He heard his confession. He was made a cardinal and president of the Secretariat for Promoting Christian Unity. So he's the one who supervised the involvement of other Christians as observers of the council. Cardinal Koenig, who died only a couple of years ago from Vienna, who had already been working in dialogue with Eastern Christians, founder of Pro Oriente, and president for a period of 15 years of the Secretariat for Non-Believers, for our dialogue with atheists, which has been changed, I think, to a Council for Culture, I'm not sure. Cardinal Soenens, one of the great figures of the Council from Belgium, member of the Preparatory Commission, and Paul VI put 4 moderators in to try to sort out the logistical mess of the Council as to who had the power to say this goes to the floor, this goes to a vote. There was too many structures, so he put 4 moderators in to sort it out, and Soenens was one of them. Cardinal Leccaro of Bologna was another, an enormously influential Italian cardinal. Cardinal Frings of Germany, from Cologne, was one of the council president. His theological advisor was a young German theologian called Joseph Ratzinger. Cardinal Elfrink from Holland. Cardinal Döpfner from Germany, also one of the moderators of the council and a member of the central. That's not where he comes from. That Mecklenburg Brussels, we made a mistake, Joan. That's Cardinal Soenens. Cardinal Ruffini of Palermo was a member of what was called Cetus Internationalis Patrum, which was a small group, very clear, very active, who were a very conservative group in the council, resistant to some of the things that were happening, and very clear lobbyists to achieve their ends. Cardinal Siri was another one of them, Cetus Internationalis, and he was one of the tips for Pope when Paul VI was elected. Archbishop Marcel Lafebvre from Senegal, a member of Cetus Internationalis, a member of that small group, and he, of course, is the one who split after the council and formed the Society of St. Pius X, who are not in communion with us. Cardinal Norman Thomas Gilroy from Sydney was one of the 10 council presidents. A boy from Townsville, second from your left, Francis Rush, who was at that time Bishop of Rockhampton, but a priest of Townsville Diocese. On his right, Archbishop Young of Hobart. I think Archbishop McCann, who became Cardinal McCann of Cape Town, I think is one of the other 2. I can't remember who the other one was. They're sitting in Via Conciliazione, just down from St. Peter's, obviously having a coffee break. There's the Australian and New Zealand bishops with Pope John XXIII at the first session of the council. The Bishop of Townsville is the 5th from the left, Bishop Ryan. And there he is heading to the council on a boat with Ricky Mullins on the far left. Then there were all the experts to advise and assist the bishops. And they're the names, anyone who studied theology, they're the great names of the period. I would have, when I taught theology, I would have used